Hi there guys, welcome back to another episode of Excel Garage. As you can see, we're in a little bit of a different location today, and that's going to be the kind of theme going through the rest of this video. It's all going to be a little bit different. As you can see, I'm at home, in my little office here. Got some pictures of the 86 up on the wall there. And we're going to be doing a few things today. We are going to be tackling the issues that the car had running and restarting, perhaps even taking the car on a little test drive, which is both exciting and frightening at the same time. And perhaps even taking the back of the exhaust off and giving those exhaust tips a little hack. So let's dive into the problems that the 86 was facing. As I said in the previous video, I've been toiling away, talking to various people that know Haltech, talking to tuners, talking to anyone that will listen and give me a little bit of help and insight. And in the end, I think I found the issue on my own in the logs, which is of course the obvious place to look. But of course, I'm no expert on tuning. I have barely scratched the surface of understanding the Haltech systems. So it obviously wasn't just obvious to me. But I found something that was really interesting and I really want to show you guys. And you'll probably agree with me that, you know, this sounds like the issue. It's just obvious. So let's let me flip the camera around. I'll point you at a computer screen and we'll have a look at those logs, shall we? Right, so here we are having a look at the Haltech data log viewer. And I know it's not the best way to show you guys this. Could just, I don't know, do a little screen record or something. But let's go through this. It's very, very simple because I made it nice and simple for myself to understand. And this might not actually be the issue, but hopefully it is. So what we have here is we have a manifold pressure filter scale. I actually can't remember how I have this one up. Manifold pressure itself, RPM, and fuel load. So these two are related. As you can see, 3.7 kPa, 3.7 kPa. They're directly fuel load is directly referencing the manifold pressure, and RPM because that's obviously when it's the indication as to when the car dies. So you can see if I scroll back to this kind of period, you can see nothing. Car starts up, drops down to a little idle, and off it goes. The manifold pressure kind of starts jittering about, but any of you who kind of understand like the tuning aspect of it knows that even this is a little bit suspect. Jottle on to when the car dies, which is around here. And this was what I found really interesting. Obviously, you can see the RPM is fluctuating around as RPMs do, and then this is where it starts to die. Right there. Now, what you'll notice is that this is not there, and that is a great big cliff that manifold pressure falls off of. So the manifold pressure is going along and then it drops off a face of cliff down to minus 98 kPa, which is huge. And that happens a few seconds before the RPM start to die. This is all a huge issue, obviously, because being that manifold pressure and fuel load are related to each other, you can see why having not only just a totally static manifold pressure is bad, because it means that it's not properly calculating the fuel load, and then for it to apply too much fuel or too little fuel, for what the car wants to keep its RPM. And obviously, if that fuel load is dropping off the face of the planet, which is causing the RPM to obviously die and the car to stop. Atmospheric pressure where I am, and generally in most places, you know, kind of C-ish level is like 101. Here it's like 103 today, for example. But it fluctuates around. It hops from like 103.4 to 103.7 to 103.5. So, you know, it's just kind of, you'll see it jittering. It should jitter. And it's not. And the way I kind of confirm that should be the case is because obviously the Haltech ECU has the inbuilt map sensor. You switch the tune over to use that and it gets the right values. Switch it back to the one that's actually on the car and it gets like a flat line value like this. So there we go. So we're going to diagnose this. I've already had a little look at it on the car and I think it's the ground. I had to rewire the map sensor, and obviously I messed it up the first time, I know that. I must have messed it up the second time, and the ground signal was wrong. So we're going to go rewire that. We're going to check that that has fixed the issue, and then the car should be able to run, it should be able to idle for as long as it wants, and then we may even take it for a little drive. So let's hop into that, shall we? Alright, so here we are with the car at my parents' house. As you can see, just down their driveway. A little bit cramped here to work on it, but shouldn't have to do really any work on it. So that's the plan at least. Need to give it a wash, that's for sure. We might even take off the exhaust, and I might cut those off at some point. Perhaps this episode, perhaps next. But yeah, it's good to get it out. I suppose it's good for it to have some fresh air. The rain's been helping so far, getting some of the dust off. But like I said, I think we're going to hit it with some soap, pressure washer, and really give it a clean that it deserves. Bring it back to its former glory and all that. So of course you saw in the logs that I showed you the issues with the map sensor and its signal. And that's all down to this little bugger. The Haltech loom, for some reason, comes with a different map sensor connector altogether. When I soldered them together originally, A, I did it wrong originally. B, I cut them too short to begin with. So then I had to redo it, and that made them even shorter. Wasn't grounding properly. The pin in there wasn't getting proper signal. So I tested that by using a crocodile clip on it, just down to the ground strap there, and that seemed to be working all right. I've had some issues with the alternator. I think it's charging now, but here's one attempt, and the other cable's there. I just bought 2 flying leads, and that goes up onto one of the old cables that came from inside the engine bay. I had to go inside the engine bay because I had to give it 5 volts, and the only Haltech DPO output spare that give 5 volts is one of the ones that's inside the cabin. So I had to get a cable inside the cabin. Rather than do that, I thought, you know what, all those big bunch of wires I cut out once upon a time, there were still a few stragglers that I kept around just in case. So I used one of those. As you can see, that purple one. There's a few spare there, but yeah, obviously that goes into the cabin anyway. It doesn't go to the end of anything else. So there we go. Easy way to get a wire into the cabin. Just have one already. Obviously, you've probably just seen, I need to give the engine bay a good old clean. I'm pretty sure this stuff is it's probably just like rusty dust from when I've been like grinding this away and so on. It's all down there as well. I need to get in here and give it a really good clean. I think this weekend a big clean inside and out is going to be on the cards. So yeah, I think that's what we do after this. All right, let's dive into things. So this time around doing the map sensor, I really wanted to solder it properly, just give myself the best chance possible that this time it was actually going to work. So I bought a brand new pigtail connector, as they're called. It's just a connector with a couple of inches of spare wire on it. And I stripped back some of the sheathing on the Haltech loom. Really just gave myself the best amount of real estate to work with these wires. If this didn't work out and I had to cut it all off again, then I still had spare wire to do it all over again with. I'm by no means the best with electronics. Didn't do anything with it at school. Pretty much just, I don't know, learned from old Mighty Car Mods videos or something. And you could perhaps crimp these. I have some of those solder heat shrink sleeves as well, but that's what I used previously, and obviously it didn't work out. So this time I wanted to go back to basics and do it with a proper soldering iron and some solder. Just giving it a little squeeze and a little rattle just to make sure it's not going to break the connection the moment I take it out for a drive and leave me stranded on the side of the road with a car that won't run. But throughout all of that, as you can see, it stayed at 103 kPa, which is atmospheric pressure on the day, and that was perfect for me. Moving on. So not all of these clips are actually in order. While I was waiting for that connector pigtail to arrive, I decided to do some other odd jobs on the car, specifically with the exhaust. So here I am, I took off the exhaust header on the passenger side, and obviously I wanted to wrap it to match the driver's side. As well as that, obviously it keeps a bit of heat out of the engine bay, blah blah blah, you know, all that good stuff.
That should hopefully lead to the longevity of the car, or longevity of parts surrounding the manifold, and so on. As you can see, you're watching this clip already having done most of the work. I unfortunately lost a lot of the footage while doing this. This side was so much quicker than the other side. I really just kind of shot through the whole thing in a single afternoon. It was quite easy actually. Obviously I didn't go all the way down the header. It was just getting to the point where adding more and more of the runners in to a single wrap was just proving difficult. And it also didn't help how the runners coned inwards towards the collector, so it was just proving more and more difficult. I think eventually I would still like to take these headers off, get them ceramic coated as such, because A, it looks better, B, I think it would do a better job. Obviously, as soon as the wrap ends, it's just going to be hot in that area. It's just moving the heat source down to the next uncoated or unwrapped thing. And obviously the wrap adds a level of thickness to the part, which just makes fitting it a little bit more tricky. I think I would like to go ahead and coat them in the future, but it's just a case of money. For the first year, I can run it like this, and perhaps next year I'll take them off, get it sent off to be coated. Didn't actually go too bad overall. I actually have loads of wrap left, so I can wrap some individual parts in the future if I need to. The worst bit is always just clipping off these cable ties if you don't have the proper tools for it, which I don't. But I've kind of found the trick is to just kind of nick them, and you can kind of eventually twist and tear it off. Then you just end up cutting yourself 1,000 times in the future on the sharp bits left over. After this, simply just refitted it. Not the easiest thing to do on the driveway, just access under the car is pretty damn difficult, so the final bit of this, which was getting the V-band back onto the rest of the exhaust, was a pain in the butt. But other than that, it went on alright. Something I didn't film was I also had to take off this valve cover that you can see me working near here. There was a bit of an oil leak, strangely, and thankfully there wasn't any major problems. I just had to reseat the gasket, which is a bit of a pain because it's actually slightly oversized, and then refit it, tighten it all down, just make sure it's making a good seal all around, and which is good because obviously what we don't want is oil leaking out of this, leaking onto a hot exhaust manifold, and the whole car going up in flames. That wouldn't be too fun. But I got all that back on, got all the coil packs back on, got the exhaust manifold back on, and it was good actually that I decided to wrap it because obviously the spark plug wires run very close to these runners to the point where you end up fitting little heat sleeves onto them. And one of them had actually been touching the runner, and even just the times that I've been just running the car stationary, barely moving it whatsoever, it had got hot to the point where it's like burnt a circle, a perfect white circle onto one of these heat sleeves. So you'll see on one that I'm fitting is that burn mark, that random white circle. How bizarre, but oh well. And another little mod I did was fit this catch can. It's just a cheap eBay jobby. There's two breathers on the rocker covers, and they relieve some of the pressure within the top part of the engine. But along with that pressure and that air, that kind of hot air, comes a load of oil vapor. If you just leave it to like vent, it will drip and it will just, you know, cover everything in oil eventually. So that's not nice whatsoever. Obviously just want to route these into a catch can and it just filters out to atmosphere. It's, you know, nothing special. It's the most simple install ever. Here we go, just showing off the earlier soldering. It looks much nicer now. A cleaner install compared to my previous attempts. Showing off that exhaust header, and you might even be able to see the catch can there down next to the overflow tank. It's just hidden away. Moving on to the exhaust. So obviously with these tips just sort of ridiculous 8 inches long, I wanted to lop a load of them off. I just thought I'm just going to come in half, see how it looks afterwards. My biggest worry was actually making sure the angle was the same to the original tip, to the kind of new cut down versions. And not only that, they're the same length, same angle, they're symmetrical, or symmetrical enough that you'll never notice. So I used a pair of calipers, ran a line around this tape that I'd placed on them, and obviously then just very slowly angle ground to that line. It didn't actually come out too bad, I'm actually quite pleased to say. Obviously, like anything, it needed some cleanup. I don't think you'll ever be able to do it perfectly without any form of cleanup. Took my time with it, just kind of almost carved the line around, and then went in the second time and went through the material. Just double check the length, make sure they're both nice and equal. After this, I went on with a big 6-inch sanding disc and just sanded them flat. Any slips, any marks from multiple angle grind cuts got smoothed out. Then I just polished them up with a Scotch-Brite pad on a grinder and stuck it back on the car. Let's have a look at how it came out. Here we go, got the exhaust refitted, and I think you'll hopefully agree it looks so much better now. Obviously the tips don't stick out miles behind the bumper. There's still a little bit of poke, but I think this is tasteful compared to how they were previously. You would really struggle to find any imperfections with them. But at the end of the day, did it myself, so there's a tolerance level of imperfections that I have. All in all, very happy. Right, hopefully you guys can hear me. Gonna go for a little test drive, see how it goes really. I'm not sure if you're gonna hear me once the engine's on, but we're just gonna see how everything goes, how it performs. I know it's gonna run a bit bad, but we'll see what happens. Well, to say it's running smoothly would be wishful thinking. It cruises all right, kind of. It's running very rich, and obviously it has the low RPM bucking issue that I know of. Has very, oh, it's going to catch it again. It seems to have cleared itself up. It was running really badly a minute ago. really big throttle delay, which I'm not too keen on. I think it like goes very lean and then rich and then lean when you stab the throttle, like if I like that. It also doesn't return to its idle very nicely. It wants to idle quite high for a few seconds and then it drops. Ugh. First gear is just unusable, really unusable. Ta-da! And there we have it. First drive, mostly success. Obviously there's a few issues with the car there, the way it runs. It's very much on a base map. There's lots of little things in tuning that need to be done to get that car absolutely 100% how I want it, which is basically just to get in, press the start button, drive off-road car, and then have a bit of fun on the way. Some of these issues I knew about, things like the low RPM bucking, as it's called. That's generally caused by having a big cam. The OEM LS3 intake manifold is very, very good at what it does, but there comes a certain point of the overlapping of the cam lobes that cause it to do funny things with the air, and that's what leads to that bucking. But apparently you can largely tune it out, or at least tune around it. You can also drive around it, giving it a few more RPM, slipping the clutch a bit, things like that, which I just need to get into the hang of while I'm driving it around before I get it properly tuned. I also think both my fans aren't running, which is, you know, a little bit scary. Hopefully even that drive didn't overheat things, but it did get up quite hot, say like 115 degrees or something. But then once I came to a stop, the fans were running, started up again, got some coolant flowing. It seemed all right. It's a big American V8 at the end of the day. I'm sure it's going to be fine. And that's the end of the first episode at the new location. But I think next episode we're going to be washing the car, and we're going to start just getting out and hopefully driving it, which is the main thing. Just taking it everywhere and anywhere, shows, meets, little events, coffee mornings, things like that. Just really, you know, getting out there, doing what I built it for, which was to enjoy the damn thing. And it definitely needs a wash before all of that. So there we have it. That's the end of this episode. If you enjoyed, please give the video a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to the channel. That would be fantastic if you could do both of those things. And comment on how you thought the first drive went. Or, you know, perhaps what you think it sounds like, because it sounds pretty cool, although the audio on that clip wasn't the best. If you'd like to support the channel further, or support my endeavours with the GT86 here, or perhaps other cars in the future, that would be quite interesting, wouldn't it? Then you can consider joining the Patreon, a link for which is all down below in the description. But that's it for this time, guys. So thanks for watching as always. Hope you have a good one, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers. Bye for now.